Hi everyone, thank you for joining me and welcome to my channel. We're going to talk about a series of transits that are happening this week that are very unique, and they're happening before the eclipse and before the equinox. Today I'm going to do a voiceover astrology segment, and then at the end of the video I'm going to read this spread for you guys. I think this energy is really important, and I'm really happy to share this with you. For members, I'm going to record a second video that will feature in-depth astrology. So today we're going to have just a general overview for everyone else. But if you're interested in a more deep exploration of the transits and aspects, then go get the Verooshian lower tier collective membership, and we will do a sit-down session talking about the astrology in depth. Okay, I'm excited to be back, and I'm excited to do this reading. The transits this week are happening right before there is a pretty big change in energy. Over the next week, we will see Venus, Mercury, Mars, and the Sun transition into different signs. And of course, we have the eclipse on Sunday, and that will be a separate video. Okay, so let's get into the reading. Hey everyone, welcome to your astrology portion of the reading. I'm excited to be here with you guys today to talk about the planetary cycle between Venus and Mars and how that relates to Chiron. This is happening as we speak, so you guys are most likely watching this just after it happened, but it's good preparatory information for the eclipse. So today we're going to talk about a planetary cycle, which is a relationship between two or more planets, and how that relates to other aspects and how that will end up connecting to the eclipse that's coming up. This is not the eclipse reading. You can understand this reading as what's coming up this week and what's on the horizon. This is a very short version of what's going on. I'm actually going to do a deep dive into this with members. So it's the lower tier members that will get a full astrology reading on this topic in the membership section. But today I'm going to explain for everyone what's going on and what to look forward to. The current astrological transits may be difficult or bring up some feelings that you don't want to feel, but it's going to lead to a very good outcome and transformation leading into the eclipse. Some of the major themes that we're looking at are relationship shifts, where people want to find more space and fairness in their interactions. Self-worth becomes very important and highlighted as we're dealing with Chiron here as well. So that means that old wounds will experience some form of closure. Expect the unexpected changes and disruptions to your plans and relationships. That's further down the line. Some of you are going to be making big decisions and fresh beginnings as resistance to external tests. But these are patterns that you've experienced for quite some time. We're looking at long-term cycles here and repeat old patterns. So don't be worried that something new is about to start. Most likely you have gained the skills and the wisdom to be able to deal with some of the astrology that's coming up for us this week. One thing that we do all want to watch out for is that our ambition does not outpace our current reality. We'll talk about that with the moon, and most likely by the time you're watching this, the specific transit affecting this will have passed. Ultimately, this transit is one of the last transits of its kind. I'll explain that more in a little later, but this is ultimately the end of a whole period of your life and a beginning of a new one. So the first transit we're talking about is Venus and Mars. We'll talk about 3 separate transits first and then link it to astrological patterns that will work together and point us towards the eclipse. So Venus is in the final degrees of Leo. She will enter Virgo on the 17th, I believe. But before she does, she's actually making a sextile connection to Mars in Libra. This is a closing sextile. It's been a long time coming because the planetary cycle, which is the relationship between the two planets, began almost 2 years ago, and it will reset in early 2026. So the final sextile, this is the final aspect between Venus and Mars before this new phase begins. The sextile is a positive energy, which means that something to do with relationships will improve or finalize, or something new will transmute out of the experiences that you've had. This is a time in which you will focus on relationships and balance interdependence and fairness in your relationships. So Venus is going to be seeking interaction, connection, and depth. And Mars, the Martian energy, is going to be seeking fairness and equity and balance within your relationship. So this is a wonderful time to find common ground with other people and make connections once again. If this is in a private relationship or an intimate relationship, this is going to balance out any difficulties that you and your partner may have been experiencing. You may experience more social invitations, collaborations, and public recognition for your efforts at this time. You may find that relationship patterns from 2022, especially January, February, March of 2022, are resurfacing here and beginning, and you are once again beginning to work through, or actually finding some kind of conclusion for the period between 2022 and now. I'll talk about this more in depth in the members only video. I'm sorry, it's a technical video. Those technical videos take a long time to make, so they're too complicated for the average viewer. Just so you know, those memberships, the lower tier ones, are only $2, I think, for the lower tier. So you're welcome to watch it. I'm excited to tell you about it. But for everybody to understand, this is the end of a larger pattern between Venus and Mars that began in 2022. And so this sextile is kind of the last kind of positive outcome, help to your relationships that will come out of that period of time. So what's actually happening in a bigger picture level is that planetary cycles that were in Capricorn in 2022 began to happen in Aquarius in 2022 and 2024. This is extremely rare. And in 2026, we're going to see this old pattern return with the next planetary cycle beginning in Capricorn again. Again, I'm going to go through the details with the members, but this means that now we are returning back to issues concerning 2022. And some of the repeat relationship lessons and insights and the general vibe of the planetary cycles in Aquarius is coming to an end. One of the features of these cycles was that there was an increased amount of autonomy. So even people within relationships may have felt more distance from their partner, more separate from their partner, and now it's time again to reconnect. So this is not the sextile under which reconnection necessarily happens. It's the precursor, but we're leading up to the time in which this kind of a cooler relationship time, 2022 to 2026, is going to come to an end. And now people are going to be making more and more intimate connections. This planetary cycle between Venus and Mars also has a lot to do with Pluto and Aquarius. These conjunctions between Venus and Mars in 2022 and 2024 began as Pluto began to enter into Aquarius. I don't have him in the chart, but he's here at 1 degree Aquarius at this time. So overall, this Venus sextile Mars is this last major aspect between Venus and Mars in the planetary cycles in Aquarius. So all of these lessons of autonomy, personal boundaries, and kind of free love sort of vibe, this is the outcome. I see this sextiles as a sort of gift, and something that you can grow from and build upon when we shift back into Capricorn. This is going to be a very interesting part of our chat with the members. So if you are interested in that part of the video, I really am excited to tell you about that. So I took off a lot of the transits like Pluto and the outer planets because I want you to see what I'm talking about. But I've included in this section Chiron because Venus is going to complete a trine to Chiron while it's sextile Mars. The relationship between Venus and Chiron is one of ongoing self-love in this pattern of moments when we are confronting our possible shortcomings, when we don't feel as good about ourselves, or we feel as though the world is pushing us down for what we are. That's Chiron in Aries. We're dealing with issues to do with that. And Venus, especially in a helpful trine, is here to give you self-love, healing, and care. This is the second to last planetary cycle between Venus and Chiron. This means that at this stage of the game, Chiron has gone through the majority of the degrees in Aries, and now we are all sort of familiar with our shortcomings and where we have troubles socially, where we have troubles in terms of being accepted for who we are. So when aspects form to Chiron in this late stage of the game, yes, it feels in some way tiresome or exhausting, but at the same time, you're very much ready to take care of yourself. You understand what you need, you understand what the problem is, and so now it's about applying those methods. So the trine is a period of grace, self-acceptance, and recognizing your personal growth. Venus has been creating these opening trines with Chiron in Leo all this time. So Leo energy is that of love, self-care, feeling blessed and happy in the rays of the sun and full of self-confidence. And Venus is channeling that energy into these positions that may feel vulnerable or otherwise challenged. The trine is telling you to celebrate progress and really address any outstanding wounds or insecurities that you may have. This is a wonderful time for self-expression, creativity, and especially with so many iterations of this pattern or of this cycle, you're really ready to create something and have an outcome to your experiences. Under this transit, you may see that there is a lot of support and help from trusted friends and communities. To add to this, Venus is sextile Mars, which gives that energy of care and help and community around you. You may experience positive feedback that reinforces your self-confidence or positive outcomes to sharing your creative works with other people or creative ideas. At the same time, Mars is opposite Chiron, which is again another planetary cycle in Chiron's transit through Aries. The opposition is the midpoint of the planetary cycle between Mars and Chiron. This is a cycle that lasts about 2 years also. This is much more a confrontation with old wounds, but because of Venus, we'll get to that in a minute, it's not unfortunate or sad. In fact, Mars in Libra is giving reason and a deep understanding of what's going on. It's like looking at yourself in the mirror. What could arise for you is that you come across someone who mirrors those issues for you and you see everything, how it works for you or why things come up a certain way for you. And because you're able to see that in that situation or person, you're able to modify things that make you feel unwell or make you feel less confident. If you look back to June 2025, Mars was actually in the exact same position that Venus is now, creating its first trine to Chiron. And so the balance of the two energies works really well together. Again, I have more notes for members about the ins and outs of the astrology here. I'm just generalizing what I found. So Venus is in the same position that Mars was. Just to be specific, I think Venus is at 25 degrees when she makes the trine, while Mars was at more 26 degrees or something like that. There's a bit of a 1 degree difference between the two planets, but there's an echo between them. So in June 2025, you may have seen some kind of situation arise that you are now seeing a mirror of in some way, and possibly you wanted to go a certain direction in June 2025, and now you are getting the emotional fulfillment that's necessary to aid in your motivation. And I mean, I need to be honest, this transit, the opposition of Mars to Chiron, does require strength. So in order to get through difficult conversations, face those challenges, you are going to have to be assertive and confident and upright and all of those wonderful things. Here's also a moment where you may establish your own personal boundaries or affirm your boundaries a very specific way, or maybe your boundaries are going to be respected or understood by others. As you overcome your obstacles, there will be recognition or support for your effort. So Venus and Mars are working together, echoing in their planetary cycles with Chiron at different positions. So I wanted to highlight a few astrological patterns to help you understand how these energies are working together. So the first astrological pattern that I'd like to discuss is called a wedge, and we've already sort of described that with the 3 transits that we've highlighted. The wedge consists of the opposition of Mars in Libra and Chiron in Aries, with a trine to Venus in Leo and a sextile to Mars again. This is a pattern that harmonizes the opposition between Mars and Chiron. So whereas the opposition might be a bit abrupt between Chiron and Mars without Venus there, Venus is actually the perfect transit to soften the blow of the opposition. This means that she's going to help with all interpersonal relationships. And again, pick up the energy from June 2025 when Mars was in this specific position and bring some compassion and love into that position. Between Venus and Mars, we are experiencing greater self-awareness and motivation to improve our relationships. The oppositions are always about relationships because they're on the same axis. So in this case, we're looking at the Aries-Libra axis, and we're focusing on the dynamic between these two planets, which very often embodies a relationship between people or situations, and Venus helps to mediate or stand in between and soften the blow of this opposition, which means that if in some way, let's say something is hurtful to you or difficult to accept, there may be a situation that's pressing down on you in that capacity that you find difficult to deal with. Or a similar pattern from the past, a similar type of personality, a certain type of situation comes up again in the past that sort of triggers those vulnerabilities in you. Well, Venus here in Leo really harmonizes that opposition and gives you extra self-confidence and awareness. And because Chiron has gone through the entire sign of Aries already, you've already gotten so familiar with how that situation plays out, what you need to do for a good outcome. So you're very ready to face whatever is coming up for you. It's also a time in which mediation turns to really good win-win outcomes and solutions. And I would expect kindness and support from third parties, people stepping in, trying to help, giving you positive comments, or in other way being helpful. Your relationships, your personal relationship, especially intimate relationship, will shift towards being more healthy and more assertive, so you will understand between you and your partner what you need or what kind of things are going to be mutually beneficial. There's an understanding here. Venus is passion in Leo. Mars is a clear mind in Libra. So earlier issues may resurface, but you're very prepared or equipped to handle them better. Growth here comes from collaboration, healing, creative problem solving together, and you're meant to draw in on that self-awareness of previous experiences that you've had that have been challenging in the past. But here you're sort of ready to be attentive and nurturing. Venus in Leo is super nurturing. It's a very protective type of mom. So you're going to be your very protective, very loving mother energy, whether you're any gender. Okay, so now I want to talk about the moon in Cancer. Again, by the time you're probably watching this, the moon has likely entered Leo, but it still affects us. So you can look back to September 16th, specifically at 4 p.m. Pacific. That's when this aspect with the moon really peaked or was exact. So moon passes the midpoint between the Mars-Chiron opposition. This is a sensitive point, so I'm going to say some things for you to be aware of. I know it's a little bit late. On Threads, I did let you guys know about it ahead of time. If I'm running late, I will message on Threads and tell you guys of any transit that I think you should watch out for. This is a sensitive point, especially on the emotional level. Amid all of the things we've talked about, the moon right here triggers a potential emotional mini crisis. This is feeling sensitive amid the opposition of Mars and Chiron, feeling as though a little sensitive about an issue, maybe feeling a little bit less confident, maybe feeling haunted by the issues that you have with your self-esteem that come up in patterns. I didn't include this in the chart, but Jupiter is actually at 20 degrees of Cancer. So the moon has just passed Jupiter when it enters into the last degree of Cancer. As the moon passed Jupiter, there was a heightened ambition, more hope, ambition, and sensitivity. You may have felt like kind of on top of the world and confident that you can get at things that you want. And then straight from that conjunction earlier in the day, there was this square that emerged off of Mars and Chiron, and that's very much like a balloon being popped. Suddenly you may feel frustration that progress is slow, that the same old obstacles are in your way. You may feel like home or family responsibilities create conflict or barriers to your personal healing or goals. But that's just temporary. You may have had very sensitive conversations that trigger and open up insecurities. But the key to understanding this transit is that you got this boost emotionally as the moon passed Jupiter, and you started to daydream a little bit and hope a little bigger than normal. And that's great if you understand what's going on. This doesn't mean that you can't have your dreams. And it's not that your balloon was really popped. It's a temporary moment in which it doesn't feel like you can get what you want, and a little bit of self-doubt. That self-doubt is actually necessary. It keeps you humble, and it keeps you from being narcissistic or any other kind of like overly ambitious person that just gets hurt by not knowing how far they can reach for things. So it's a very normal, healthy realization of what some of the boundaries that you're dealing with are. But these are not fixed boundaries. These are boundaries that you can grow beyond, but you have to be aware of them. It's almost like walking by a prickly fence. You have to know where the prickles are so that you don't get scratched. So yes, for a moment, maybe on the 16th, you had a situation that evoked self-doubt, but really ask yourself, were your ambitions in the situation a little bit too big, or did you start getting yourself a little bit off track, daydreaming too much and losing that groundedness to your goals? This does not mean that you don't get your dreams. It just means that as the moon passes the midpoint between Chiron and Mars, you're once again reminded with some of the things that you're dealing with, some of the things you have to navigate to get to those goals. And that's very good for having a leveled mind. So as you see, I've added Saturn, which has retrograded back into Pisces, into the chart. This creates a yod off of the sextile between Venus and Mars. The yod pattern is like a laser beam of energy. The two planets in the sextile fuse their energy together across the 60 degrees, and the focal point comes in the midpoint on the opposite side. The focus here intensifies the yod and creates our foundation of the eclipse that's coming up. We will do a separate video on the eclipse, but it starts literally on the 16th of September. Pragmatically, what will happen between Venus and Mars creating this yod onto Saturn is fast-paced change beginning on the 16th. Sudden shifts in our plans or beliefs. This begins a change of the planets because the planets are shifting signs. Venus enters Virgo, Mars enters Scorpio. Mercury, that is not here in the chart, will enter Libra, I believe, and the sun will enter Libra as well right after the eclipse. So all the personal planets at the end of this week and beginning of next week are actually switching signs into the opposite element. So from earth and water into fire and air, and the opposite for the other two. It's kind of like a do-si-do in line dancing or square dancing. So something happens very quickly under this yod that affects beliefs, which is Saturn. There's very quick change, and this will continue right until the 19th when Venus enters into Virgo. In relationships, there may be a very quick reassessment of trust, boundaries, or priorities. One or more partners may have changes in faith. This reminds me of a transit that could create an environment in which there's tension in a relationship over faith, such as religious beliefs, where one person has a different belief structure than another person, and that's causing problems in their relationships. And under this transit, I could see one partner converting their belief to complement the belief structure of their partner. And genuinely, not forcing the issue, but genuinely changing their mindset. Likewise, this yod is not just for relationships. There may be events coming up in your life that make you question or change your spiritual beliefs or religious beliefs. There could be events that come up in which relationships unveil weakness in relationships or institutions. So Saturn here makes the relationship to institutions and governments very personable, brings them down to the ground. And through our interpersonal connections, human connections with each other, aspects of institutions that are hidden or gatekept may become unveiled. Overall, I think this yod can really bring about some adjustment and renewal of optimism. Okay, so I brought Uranus and Pluto into the chart, and we're going to look a little bit towards the weekend to see what's coming up next. On Saturday, Venus will create a square to Uranus in Gemini. So while the sextile to Mars is creating an energy of balance and trust in relationships, with Uranus, there's something unexpected, possibly including communications or miscommunications, or maybe technical issues such as a text message not reaching its recipient that creates disjunction, unexpected changes, or misunderstandings. Uranus here could lead to impulsive actions. Remember, Uranus is activated by Pluto and by the upcoming eclipse as well, in a giant grand trine that's leading into a grand air trine in early next week. So Uranus here is becoming unpredictable, unstable, things are changing. And this almost immediately challenges the equilibrium that was developed between Venus and Mars. I don't want to worry you guys, but I just want to tell you the arc. So from the 16th into the weekend, things taper out in terms of relationships. New understandings are reached. New vision is established with Saturn, really understanding where the other person is coming from. And then expect on Saturday some kind of minor disruption. It's like, here we go again. More lessons, more learning. But don't worry about it. This is a part of the game of living. This is what it's all about. And so everything that happens this week as we head into the eclipse, which is going to be in the last degrees of Virgo, stabilizes our relationships and makes preparation for this very special eclipse almost in the 29th degree. It's technically in the 28th degree and 59 minutes, so right on the precipice of the anaretic degree. And in that eclipse, Saturn is going to be very important as well. So Saturn is sort of getting warmed up with these aspects from Mars and Venus. Expect relationship issues to be a part of this eclipse or lead up to the eclipse for you. And when I say relationships, I mean all sorts of relationships, dynamics with other people. And use the energy earlier this week to prepare. Set new goals with friends, make connections, embrace new relationships, embrace new dynamics within your relationship. Don't be afraid of starting new things before the eclipse and see how they play out through the eclipse. It's likely if you begin something right before this eclipse, that eclipse is going to make it more stable or more concrete or committed or practical. So if at first it feels sort of woo-woo or delulu, maybe not feeling so confident on the 16th with the moon, maybe some disruptions with Uranus on the 20th, with Venus, again, feeling less confident. Venus will be in Virgo by then. The eclipse is going to help you carry up over the underlying energy, building new relationships, improving your relationships, improving your communication with your spouse or loved ones. And so the final major aspect, now we're just doing a quick reference for the future. The significance of this aspect between Venus and Mars has a lot to do with the transition of energy between earth and water into fire and air, alongside the outer planets of Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus, right? We're all experts at this now. The outer planets are changing, our world's changing. This is a part of the planetary cycle between Saturn and Jupiter, the Great Conjunction, switching into air, and us becoming closer and closer to the 25th century when we really begin the age of Aquarius. That's when the vernal equinox begins, when the sun is in the constellation of Aquarius. It won't happen till 24 something. There'll be a transition phase. Transition means that some years will be still in Pisces and some years the vernal equinox will be in Aquarius for a period of time. Anyway, we're switching energies from earth and water, where we've been, into fire and air. And so this sextile between Mars and Venus is the midpoint of that, is the transition point where this is happening. And from that is where we get our kite that we've been following since 2023. And we have Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus with the focal point here. So the midpoint between Venus and Mars sextile is in the same or similar position to the eclipse in Virgo at the end of this week on Sunday. And that is one of the last major focal points astrologically, as this kite off of Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus is going to shift into Libra. We're going out of sign a little bit here, but because these are big transits and involving an eclipse, this is that transition point. So the eclipse and this relationship between Mars, Venus, and Chiron, we're talking about the last 10 years. We're talking about the past. We're tidying up. We're learning lessons. We're taking what we've learned and preparing to bring it forward. And I'll talk to you guys about this way more in the future, but this is a synchronicity of this transition. So I hope you have a wonderful week. There's a lot more to say about everything that's going on, but this is one to keep in mind. Prepare yourself for the eclipse and really welcome in all of these relationships that are improving and things are coming together. There's understandings that are being reached. Okay, so thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to shift over to the tarot. I hope you're having fun watching this. I'm having fun making it for you, and I'll be back with more videos. Okay, thank you. See you soon. Bye. Hi guys, I'm back. I'm very excited to do this tarot reading for you guys. Two quick little things. I'm recording this before I actually do the in-depth astrology. Although I'm familiar with what's going on astrologically, I haven't really broken it down yet. So this is kind of happening before I say certain things in the astrology section. Second thing, I want to go over how to watch videos for astrology and tarot, but mostly tarot. Here's just a suggestion. You can take it or leave it, but it's something that works for me when I watch videos. What you may want to do is listen for the different messages that are coming in and see which part resonates or which is a confirmation. So use your own intuition and your own observations. And if I say something that complements or validates your own impression, that is what the energy is working really powerfully for you when that happens. So if you've had a dream, or if you've been thinking about something, or if someone is on your mind, and me or another reader confirms that perception, that's when you should say, oh, okay, that makes sense, and this should be another data point. Okay, so let's get into the reading. So as expected, this has a lot of tension overtones in the dynamic. This tension is not bad, but it is an energy that is addressing tension. At the center of the reading, we have the Five of Wands, which is people in a stressful push-pull energy, a push of will, a push of opinion, a push and pull of position and power. So you may find yourself in the middle of this, or addressing a situation that has to do with power imbalances or asserting your power. There are elements here that have to do with less money, okay? So we have the Five of Wands, and I'm going to the end of the reading because I think it's kind of the punchline. Some people are struggling financially, and that is influencing how they are behaving. This helps us to understand if we are dealing with people that are not easy to deal with, what is actually motivating their behavior. In fact, there's several 7s and 5s here and a 3 here on the table. So let's go over them. We have the 7 of Swords here. This is the first card. It's the 7 of Swords, which is Moon and Aquarius. Sometimes it has to do with walking away, and I do think that's kind of a message for the tarot reading as well. But it also has a message of being targeted or having something taken from you or dealing with deceptive people. Think of the mice in the Lenormand cards. And I remember somebody asking for a Lenormand reading that's a member, and yes, I will be doing Lenormand readings as well. Here we have the Five of Cups in this position, which is some degree of disappointment. Overall, what we're looking at is considerable pressure on the emotions, stress of the mind. And so certain energies or certain people specifically may be feeling anxious, worried, or just emotionally tired, specifically in the feminine energy. In the Three of Swords, now I don't mean to poke at politics or something like that, but we do have Saturn having re-entered into Pisces, and in this position has a lot to do with religion. And so as Saturn has entered Pisces, obviously a lot of events concerning religion have risen up. So I'm not making any political claims or something like this. This is just an observation and trying to be objective. But it seems as though that people who are in religions, especially organized religions, are really, really hurt emotionally by what's happened or what's been happening. Now, I'm not validating the whole circumstances, but whenever there is an issue, conflict, or issue between people, it's really good to understand their motivation. And so in this case, I really strongly feel that there may be people who are hurt, and especially on a religious level, people who believe, and this may be happening in your personal life as well. And so what's in that type of situation, if somebody is hurt or expressing sadness at something, you need to be very careful and walk on eggshells with them a little bit so as not to antagonize those kinds of circumstances. It's kind of an insight into who you're dealing with and what they're going through. People can do lots of things when they're grieving and when they're sad and motivated by difficult emotions. And especially if you're dealing with someone who is of a religious sort, especially organized religion, recognize that they're super sensitive right now. They may feel betrayed, they may feel hurt, they may feel sad, a mix of emotions. And that mix of emotions may actually motivate backlash or irrational behavior. And so you need to be aware of that you're dealing with someone who is possibly triggered or is possibly emotionally sensitive at this time. Okay, so going back to our survey of all the 5s, 7s, and 3s in this reading, we have the 5 of Wands, which we sort of talked about already. It's a push and pull energy between people. There's going to be a lot of good. I'm just getting the circumstance or the foundation of a situation out of the way. Then we have the 7 of Cups. This actually indicates that in the situation there may be abuse of alcohol or drugs that are influencing people's emotions. And this makes me think of the 3 of Swords here in this position. Often when people abuse drugs and alcohol, this affects their emotions as well. There's a feeling of a heaviness here. And at the bottom we have the Devil card here. So we're talking about a situation that potentially has some overflow, overreactions, hypersensitivity, and hypersensitivity that's specifically fueled by chemical imbalance due to substance abuse, okay? So if you're in that situation, know that you're in sensitive territory. And I think that if you are in a difficult situation like that, you're already aware of this. There's a tiptoeing energy right next to the 7 of Cups. So there's things you don't want to say. There's things that you just want to be careful around. You may be at this time wondering if there's a way through in these problems. At this time, it could feel overwhelming. I want to reassure you, even though we're getting at the problems right now, we're talking about the issues. I do think that this is about addressing issues and overcoming issues and seeing your way through circumstances. So with this 8 of Swords here, you may feel bogged down, but I think that that's the final stage before things start to reconcile or improve. We have the 5 of Pentacles, which we also talked about. So it looks like there's a tension that is material, right, to do with money. There's an unstable environment in which possibly some people may want to be deceitful, dishonest in some way. There could be an element of religiosity in the circumstances, specifically religious ideas or narratives that feel hurt. So that have to do with feeling hurt, feeling betrayed, and that's interrelated with religious beliefs. And at the center, there's a power struggle, which could indicate quite a bit of tension between people. And then probably the most disconcerting part, of course, is the substance abuse. Because when we have substance abuse, we're really taking the irrational, putting irrational into the situation, taking the rational out, and really making it harder to work your way through. And so I think that that's the circumstances that many people are facing. Oh, and I forgot, there could be also hurt feelings, feeling bogged down, and feeling tired, especially the feminine energies may be feeling tired at this time or stretched emotionally. Okay, so let's fix this. Let's talk about how it's going to improve. And there's key people that are showing up in this reading and over the next week that are likely going to offer solutions and elevation and improvement. So don't worry about the things that are happening. I mean, do worry because it's your life, but be rest assured that these things are going to work out. So first of all, let's go back to the Seven of Swords. So I love the Seven of Swords because I have Moon in Aquarius. And just as much as it has to do with deception or dishonesty, it also has a lot to do with detachment in the right circumstances. So if you're in a situation in which there may be not an immediate solution, the Seven of Swords reminds you that you can emotionally detach, emotionally disconnect, and walk away. So this is your power card in a sense as you are dealing with people who may not be willing to give up space, who may be unable to walk away from their conditioning, their beliefs, and their programming. They're so rooted in their ideology that they're not able to release and reflect and and oftentimes this has to do with being in the moment, right? So I'm not saying this as a permanent thing, but in the moment people are feeling a certain type of way and it's really integrated with their conditioning, their belief systems, things like that. And oftentimes when you come back to things a little bit later, that pressure has dissipated and it's removed. Okay? So this Seven of Swords allows you to not internalize stress from particular situations and the ability to walk away. We have someone who comes in with wisdom. Now, in the astrology, I'm going to be telling you guys a lot about the air signs because Mercury is moving into Libra, Sun is moving into Libra right after the eclipse. We have this energy of air coming. That energy of air is going to be very productive. And so this King of Swords represents a person. It could be a man, it could be a woman, and it could be somebody else, another gender. And it could be an air sign, Gemini, Aquarius, or Libra, but it could be also another sign. The key to understanding the King of Swords is that they're very rational. They've gotten through life through reason. And so they're a person who you go to with for clarity. It's having a conversation with someone who provides you just very direct insight into your circumstances. And so this person is coming in with wisdom and help to help you understand the situation. We also have the High Priestess here, which also has to do with guidance and information and giving you insight. Now, in the position that she's in relation to the King of Swords, this helps me to identify that for many of you, this may be a masculine figure. So rather than a woman coming in with guidance, like a High Priestess, this is someone who is some kind of truth sayer. Now, in my experience in life, there are wonderful mystics around the world, but I often find that people who share real wisdom come in all shapes and sizes. By that, I mean, it may be a tarot reader, it may be an astrologer, but oftentimes those kinds of people are someone who doesn't know anything about astrology or tarot. So look to people that may not be who you expect to provide you such insight. So somebody's coming in with insight. And it's almost as if you're in a situation here that's constantly happening. There's constant pressure, disappointment, lack of trust, maybe some degree of betrayal or anticipation of betrayal. And someone in the mix of this comes through with clarity, insight. Listen to them and listen to what they have to say. It does seem to me that it's less of a mystic or a spiritual figure, and it does resonate intuitively for me as a regular person. So, just it's kind of like in a movie where an older man is sitting on the porch, and the character walks by and they say something offhanded that sort of opens up the whole meaning of the whole movie, or is significant for the character that hears him. Look for a situation like that. Now, I feel as though there's a lot of positive energy coming in for you through relationships, not just romantic relationships, all sorts of relationships. There's the Page of Wands here. This is a younger family member, possibly, or somebody who's close, like a family member, coming in with bringing you joy and happiness. This, at the end of the day, the first row, it's not the first day literally, but it's figurative like this. At the end of this sequence of events, with this bogging down energy, this heavy insight, but brings clarity, there's some joy at the end of it. So look for the joy at the end of this sequence. And we have the 10 of Cups. If you heard gurgling, that's my stomach. Then we have the 10 of Cups. So this and this are closely together. Somebody from your family, or someone who's close like a family member, is bringing you joy, happiness, and support. And so it seems as though you have a circumstance that is quite heavy and maybe weighing you down emotionally, but you have this relationship or connection that's uplifting and brings you a lot of joy. So expect like a celebration, going out with someone, having fun, having nice dinner even, but it's laughter, joy, happiness, hanging out together, and just being easygoing is a part of that. So it may be like a stressful week at work, and then on the weekend you spend time with your family, and things are going to be fun and joyful. And in fact, this is the environment of this reading. The environment of the reading is one that is full of joy and happiness and relatively a good time, but something that involves dynamics in circumstances that are not easy. Those circumstances, I don't believe, are yours. It's something that's happening in the environment that you're experiencing. Okay, for some of you, there is a bit of a message here concerning love. Some of you are striving really hard to get to something very special with someone. Either you're already in a relationship, or you're just beginning one, or you're hoping to find one. And so love is a priority. And I sense that there's a lot of effort that you're putting into this to try to bring this about for yourself. And this is your effort, the 9 of Rods, which is sort of separating yourself from everything else with this passion towards another person, waiting for their message, waiting to hear from them, but also kind of scripting in your mind what that relationship will be like. So what I'm seeing here is a lot of narrative writing from you, whether you're actually writing, but most people just do it in their head. In other words, you're imagining what that situation could be like or will be like for you, and you're putting a lot of energy behind that desire to make it happen and to bring it about. Now, for many of you, you will get confirmation of a closeness in a relationship. For some of you, this is going to be with that person that we just described, but that energy, you're feeding a lot of energy into your life that is of a loving nature. For some of you, this has to do with the general circumstances. You may be tired of the way the world is right now, and so you're just done with it. And you want to overpower the environment energetically. You're trying to make that love come up for you regardless of the things that are happening. It's saying no to, bad influences, and saying, I am going to have loving relationships and connections with other people. And so whether it is like a laser beam where you're really trying to secure love with a specific person, or if you're just adamant on evoking in your life loving dynamics, I think you're going to see it this week. And the Lovers comes up and in a very special position. Okay, so I really, really like this position. It suggests that it's going to come in. For some of you, the funny thing about this position and like the rest of the cards is that it's coming in an unexpected way. So when I'm saying unexpected way, what I mean is you're pushing in a ton of energy to make love happen. And because you pushed in so much energy to make loving connections happen around you, it's just flowing in with a lot of abundance and support. It's very, very strong. The advice of this person may be somehow attached to this, whether directly or giving you inspiration. Maybe that's what they tell you. Maybe I'm this person. I'm pretty air-driven person myself. So, like astrologically, maybe the message is like, all these things are happening, but you still need to create love in your life. Some kind of advice like this. I find my readings to be somewhat rational, especially in the astrology. I get feedback on that they're very cerebral, right? So maybe that's what it is. But in any way, whoever this is, it could be multiple people actually are coming in with some kind of a message that is helping to inspire this energy. But the energy is coming through you already. It's that the energy is, I desire love. I'm going to push for it. I'm going to make it happen. And so it's that desire within you that brings up love. And again, this could happen in multiple ways. So you may get that partner, but you also may receive like wonderful messages from your friends, see your family, whichever people you love. So be excited and be waiting for that energy. Okay, so it seems as though something had been initiated, okay, to bring balance back into circumstances before. This could be through the act of one specific person. It's almost like a catalyst that got the ball rolling in a particular way. And so there is a story arc here of an energy that is meant to level the playing field and make things fair between people. What you're going to see this week is some kind of quick transformation or ending. For some of you, this is the ending of a friendship or a business association, someone with whom you've been interacting. This relationship would be already under strain or pressure. It's not working, and it's been continuing on despite the fact it's not working. And so as a part of this larger initiation, it's almost like a storyline that you're in. There's going to be key things that are said that either change or permanently end the situation. But this is for the purpose, we have justice here. So no matter it's almost like an alleviation of stress and worry or misalignment. So there could be a misalignment between yourself and someone else in a relationship, and you keep interacting with this person, but it's a part of a larger situation. So by that, I mean that it could involve you and your partner. We have the couple here in the back. And it could involve you and your partner and a third person's kind of out of balance in that dynamic. Or it could be something within your family where one family member is just imposing a little bit too much. So for the purpose of bringing balance into your life circumstances, that relationship is going to phase out, change. I feel as though it's going to become less central. So you may see that person less. It might not be a complete ending. It could be that you don't see that person so much, or that person, you know what this reminds me of? So don't disregard this magician and justice like the large story arc, but this is like, imagine going to a store and there's someone who's rude to you there, like a cashier or salesperson. And I hate those kinds of situations, like going into a place where somebody is rude or disrespectful. But like, what are you supposed to say, right? Like, you're going to get them fired. In this economy, it's kind of like not something so you go to the store, but sometimes people get moved, like maybe not even fired, but like go work in a different section, like maybe now they're working in the back and you don't have to see them, or they work in the bakery part and you don't have to see them anymore. So there could be some kind of, and I'm not saying this is the exact situation, but this could be something involving someone getting removed, something changing, something where there was tension in a dynamic. Now you don't have to face it anymore. And that's a part of, but this has to do energetically with a large bringing about of balance in relationships and dynamics instigated by someone else. Now, this is a very energetic interpretation. It could be literal in the sense that one thing affects another like dominoes, but it could be like a trajectory of energy. I hope you guys know what I mean. So they may not be literally connected, but energetically they're all a part of this event cycle. But it's bringing in other words, it's bringing justice into your life. Okay? So next card is, so we talked about this a lot, and this is substance abuse in my opinion. And maybe not yours. If it's yours, then I hope you figure it out. But more than anything, it seems as though that you're next to people that are using substances that are affecting you negatively. There could be a person who has gone through serious substance abuse in the past, somehow adjacent to all of this. This person is going to understand the circumstances that you're dealing with. They're coming in a very helpful way. This person comes in with clarity of vision, opinion, sharpshooter, clear mind. This person is coming in with a very loving energy, loving emotions, caring, nurturing. He's the King of Cups. And so this could be a relationship, a revival. Someone sees you when you're down and understands it. One of the things I'm getting for this is that because this person possibly has gone through substance issues of their own, they understand what you're burdened by, and so therefore they're empathetic. They understand the difficulty. Now there's some hiddenness to do with strength or Leo energy. I'm not calling out Leos, but for some of you, this may be to do with a Leo person. This may have to do with someone who's born between July and August during Leo season as well, or someone who has Leo rising, Leo moon, things like that. There could be an underlying tension as a part of the greater dynamic, not necessarily the same situation as here, but just another person who's in the environment, who's hiding their true intentions. There's like a secrecy here, so be aware of that. I think that the thing that this is causing you is an effect on you that makes it harder for you to relax and feel good about maybe this relationship, or maybe this is the same relationship or this one. It's just another distraction. Distractions are the devil. They're demons, right? So we have the devil on the bottom. So be wary of that. Don't allow the good things to be affected by the things that have some shadow to them. There's a potential for seeing someone who you haven't seen in a while. Remember, so I'm describing like an energy, like one big energy, but it has different little parts to it. And so this part has a potential of seeing someone from the past, seeing someone again. Maybe people are thinking of reconnecting with each other. Maybe this is like the early stages before you actually reconnect, but you're starting to think about each other now. Part of this, something becoming fair, something becoming balanced. And then we have another king. So even with the devil here, the devil is Capricorn, but it can actually mean like it's a trump card. It can also mean a very like system-oriented thing. So like this is like another king. And the reason I'm raising this issue is that we have 3 kings on the table. This is the King of Wands. And to me, whenever kings show up in a reading, there's a lot of social emphasis going on to do with organizing your life and setting up new ways and new directions. And so based on the astrology message, I do think that's right, because the underlying principle of the astrology is some kind of getting at the core of a problem and sort of elevating and moving past it and fixing how your life is organized. Somebody's coming in with help, and I think likely with money. So we're bringing back the 5 of coins from before. I don't think that you're necessarily the person who has not enough money. I mean, we can all use more money, but in this situation, you're not the primary suspect of this card, okay? So you're not the person. This is talking about someone around you. However, we all could use money, and I think that somebody's coming in with material help. He's a king of wands, okay? There's material material wands wants. That's a funny pun. So there's material kind of infusion into the situation to help in circumstances. Listen, there's something that's gotten really messed up overall, and we can see that in the world in general. It's been messed up for a while, and things are reaching to a head, and there's new revelations of things that are happening, and people are bouncing off each other a lot right now. So that's the devil. But what this is saying, and why I did this reading, is that astrologically too, it seems as though there's an improvement of that general confusion, or the nexus, the interlocking of everything. So, I know that this is not going to fix everything. We're before the second eclipse, and there are still those tensions underneath. But here we're seeing like the sun peeking through and real potential for loving connections and understanding. So it's almost like, when friends sit together under an umbrella in the rain, cuddling together or huddling together in the rain. So the environment could be like a little rainy, and I mean energetically rainy, or a little gusty and a little bit heavy, but there's definitely rainbows and light peering through with some positive energy. And this actually to me seems like there's like an unexpected element to this. Right away I saw this card. I saved it for last because I think it's the best. There's some kind of something coming in that's going to help you structurally change the circumstances. Something's shifting for you for the better. Okay? Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys have a nice day, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.